do? There's these creepy crawly things all over my garden. They're eating everything. What do we do? Well, you're in luck because today on the Backyard Gardens podcast, we are going to talk about, if we get that far, the top 6 pests in your garden and how to treat and get rid of them right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. Okay, Batavia, are you ready to talk about pests?
Do you see me all frowned up?
Yeah.
I'm not very squeamish. People are like, how many episodes have you cried about mice? Well, I mean, there are a couple of exceptions, but generally I'm not that squeamish. And I'm probably more concerned about the vegetables than I am about dealing with whatever the pests are.
Yeah.
So that said, I am kind of like icked out. But yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. It is icky. Some of them are icky, and some of them, they're not too icky to me. But I think it's one of those things in time, you get used to them. You know what I mean? I think you get a little desensitized.
Yeah. You know, I think people that don't garden can easily know, like, oh yeah, there's a worm, right? An earthworm or something, right? There are a couple of things that your non-gardener is just used to hearing about, maybe coming across, you know, in their yard or something. As soon as you start opening up yourself to like growing things, it's a whole other world.
It is.
You know? Like,
it is.
So yeah. And there's never a guarantee that, you know, if you didn't have them last year, you won't have whatever, you know, the pest is this year. Bright side, though, if you had them this year, doesn't mean you will automatically have them next year.
Right. So.
Doesn't necessarily mean that.
So, I'm working on that, though, as we speak.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that.
Do tell.
No. No. Well, no, I'll go ahead and tell. I am dealing with a subterranean termite in my garden. And as we get through the show right now, I will reveal in due time what I'm using to help prevent in the future these subterranean termites. Reason why
You're so fancy.
Dude,
subterranean termites.
Well, see, I had to look it up, and actually it was due to Miss Batavia and her fancy Googling. She helped me because Leonard was no damn help at all.
Shocker.
Yeah, no doubt. But she got me on the termite tick, and then I was able to deduce down that they are subterranean. So it makes me feel fancy to say it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have a problem, might as well make it a fancy problem,
right? That's that's a beautiful way to put it.
Totally not. It's ridiculous, but it sounds good.
Yeah. So I have a listener question though before we get started.
Okay. I'm listening.
I am about to give it to you. So this is pretty funny. I got this message. Let me get to it.
So where is the message from?
It's from
Where did the listener...
Instagram, Backyard Gardens TV. Instagram.
Okay.
So it's at Backyard Gardens TV. You should follow us. You never know what's going to happen. And
I mean, I'm sure you are following if you're listening, right? Yeah. You?
I am. Yeah. I'm following. So the question reads, "Hey guys, love the podcast. Quick question. Cedar is really hard to find in my area. Do you have any other bed border suggestions? I was thinking about just using pine board and replacing it down the road after it rots, or trying to treat the pine board in some way to make it more water resistant, but I'm hesitant to add harsh chemicals to the boards. Any help?"
Yeah.
I did a crazy talk about this before, but I wanted to bring it up because it adds a little complexity to it.
Because some of the things that you or I may say, hey, this is fine to use, may not be as readily available. So that's one thing to note.
Like you can't find cedar boards, and it can be hard to find, and it's very expensive.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, when you take in 2021 the price of lumber, which I think I heard is maybe falling a bit, but the price of lumber in general, then you tack on the general expense of cedar, which is going to be more expensive than your untreated, your treated, all of that. I mean,
right. So
I hear them.
You know, and I mean, my answer to her, and I'll tell you what the answer was, or him. I don't know, him or her. I don't know. I said, Batavia uses metal beds. You know, you use a lot of metal beds. And I did not know at the time you use cedar. I just kind of went off of my memory. And I use treated wood. Pressure treated wood.
So just for those that are listening, as of this recording, I have the metal beds in the front yard. I have some plastic raised beds. At least one in the backyard.
Is it BPA
I also
free?
have. It is designed for a garden, so I would hope that it's BPA free. Yeah, I know. I also have cedar raised beds, and then I have one bed that's pressure treated. It's the oldest bed in my garden. Right. So, you know, I just like to try all kinds of things and see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, I told her, I told this person, I keep wanting to say her, but, you know, I told this person, like, you know, first of all, if you don't know my stance on it, you should go back, and I don't know what episode it was. It was a couple episodes ago where I got very colorful about it and very vocal. But, you know, basically pressure treated wood, they stopped treating it with arsenic about 15 years ago or so, 10 years ago. You can fact check me on that, and I'm okay if I'm wrong, but it was a number of years ago. And
more than a decade.
Yeah. And the way I worded it was, you know, even if there is that in there and it leaches into your soil, it's still not as bad as what is being sprayed or whatever your view on genetically modified crops are. And then I followed up and I was like, I support you using regular wood. That's what I did. And in this garden, this is the first garden where I used regular wood. And in 2 years, it completely rotted out. So in 2 years, I was rebuilding my beds. And that's just, you know,
regular as an untreated
wood. Yeah. Not cedar. Okay. Which everybody recommends cedar. So I get it. You know,
I've heard recommendations for redwood too, which is supposed to be more on the long lasting side. I mean, if I'm going to not recommend anything, it is going to be untreated. I'm not going to recommend that just based on it's just not durable.
No.
If you're in a climate that has any kind of weather, if it ever rains, if it ever snows, if it, you're going to get a couple of seasons out of it.
I couldn't believe that mine rotted that fast.
Yeah, if you're only interested in a couple of seasons of gardening, you know, you want to get in at a lower price, then go for it. But yeah.
Yeah.
So wait. So did this person already have garden beds?
Or no, I'm not sure. Okay. I know I got a picture later on. We got a picture that they had put in beds. So, and then, you know, another question arose, which actually we're going to share that question on the next episode because it's just too many questions. But I would like to share it because it was very interesting. You know, and I like to get into questions because I have to think about it, and you do too, because you know a lot of times I'll message you and be like, "What do you think?" You know. Yeah. But
well, I mean, I think that it's the start of a garden. And we also talked recently about the idea of using raised beds at all. Right, you know, so you'll definitely have to go back and listen to that piece of it. But
this person definitely needs a raised bed, and that's why I want to talk about it again next week because.
Oh, look at you just leaking the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I am wishing them luck with whatever they chose to use in their garden. Yeah. It's a great question, you know. I'm just going to say I always raise an eyebrow at people when they're absolutely dead set on a thing and against another. I just want to make sure that, you know, how adamant they are one way or another is genuine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you're anti-insert whatever, is it genuine? Is it factual?
Well,
you know?
And I mean, the thing is to, you know, the cedar, like everybody recommends cedar. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. And I mean, if you have cedar, great. I know you have cedar. But it's very bougie. Meaning, like when I put the greenhouse up, my original thought was, okay, I want to get cedar. Okay, that's what I want to put it on. And then I went to go find it. And when I finally found it now, mind you, when I finally found it, it was 75% more than pressure treated wood. 75% more. And you're going to have to replace it someday. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I think the way I look at it is if the budget allows, then I'm going to recommend cedar, right? If the budget allows, like the metal garden beds are, if I had to do the math, I'm sure are more expensive than insert wood.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say generally wood, right? And this isn't even you get what you pay for, with the exception of untreated. You absolutely do get what you pay for when it comes to what you're using it for when it comes to untreated. But yeah, I mean, you start to combine the other things, the other expenses, it does become an expensive garden. I also balance it with how long you plan on using this for. Like, to be quite frank, and I'm not, what's the Disney character that's Scrooge McDuck? I'm not swimming in gold coins over here. No. So, but I can say once the expenses is paid, I'm not thinking about the money that I spent on those garden beds, the wood in 2018 when I put the cedar down, right? That's gone. That's money spent. I wish it looked as good as it did when it first went down, because it's some pretty wood, but it doesn't,
No, it ages.
Which is a good note. It's not going to look as good as it does at first year either.
Now, you can stain the outside of it before you put it in if you wanted to. And, so I'm going to close this out because I don't want to make this whole episode this. I fully support 100% people using pressure treated wood. Fully support it. And as a matter of fact, I recommend it because you can save your money and put it into good use somewhere else in your garden. So that's where I put it. It is what it is. You can do your own research and everybody can figure it out. And I think it's really important that you make your own decisions. Don't just go by off what I say or Batavia says or anything. Use these things to kind of help you make the decisions. And I'm glad that she asked, because I can help steer her, whatever, into the right direction. But it's whatever you want to do, and it also comes down to aesthetics in your garden. That's what it comes down to a lot. And the metal beds are aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. So now if I leaned on one, it would burn the crap out of my leg. So
if I only had a backyard garden, I wouldn't have metal garden beds back there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And it makes sense that you would put them in the front. It's very, it makes sense, especially based on where you live and everything. It is. Absolutely.
It is 100% that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they look slick, don't get me wrong, but it's 100% that. I wouldn't have spent the monies. One thing to note about those, and I had this question maybe last year, they have been durable. I have gotten the question about, is it safe? So I mean, I think I'm going to tell you, anytime you put something that is foreign, if you will, like, wood of any kind, a structure of any kind, someone's going to find the opportunity to ask the question about, is it okay? And I mean, I think generally it's a fair question. I mean, we were just talking about the water hose guy, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on.
Yeah, no, don't bring that up. No. And I think that people, I think as a whole, we just need to kind of stop worrying about that so much sometimes and just use common sense. I think that's really what it comes down to. And I mean, it is what it is. Stop freaking out, everybody. Just enjoy your food in your garden. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about pests. Holla. A lot of y'all asked, how can you help support the Backyard Gardens podcast? Well, we have been busy, and we have created a t-shirt line just for the gardener.
To visit our shop, go to the link in the show notes and check out the t-shirts and other goodies we have.
Now, these are super special t-shirts designed just for the gardener, so enjoy. Thank you for supporting the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we'll see you guys after the harvest. It had to come to an abrupt ending.
That's fine, because I have one more thing unrelated to that. I hope you get this in the shot. Are you checking out the beauty that is Fiddle League Fergie and Fiddle League Fred behind me?
Oh, yeah.
I hope that you get that in the shot, man. I'm telling you. It's some good stuff. Anyway,
you and your
a couple of my houseplants.
You are your houseplants.
2 of a million, yeah.
What's our first pest?
A is for aphids.
Oh.
Aphids. Yeah, man. Aphids, anywhere you garden, you may find them. Even if you're gardening in your grow room, you may find them.
Well, no, so first of all, only one person I know in the entire world who happens to be on this podcast and is not me, I'm not saying any names though, has had aphids in their house, okay? There's only one person.
So, man, it's just fuck, you know.
And then the other thing about aphids, I don't think they're a big deal.
I know you do, and I get a little bit annoyed by that.
Why?
Yeah, I get a little bit annoyed by that.
Why?
Like, I know that's your opinion.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I'm not saying it's not, but...
Yeah, but it's like, it's this level of being dismissive, and I am washing off plants, every few days in my laundry room sink. Like, it's the biggest pain. I've had to separate the stands in my grow room to like isolate plants that I think I got the aphids off of. But anywho, I won't spend any time on that. I think I have it under control. I think most people that have problems with aphids will definitely have them in their outdoor garden versus indoors. So I don't want to monopolize.
Well, I get aphids every
year. But
it's
a pain in the freaking ass.
I get aphids every year. So first of all, let's go down this road. How do we recognize an aphid when we see it?
I think it can look like some other bugs because they can be green, they can be gray, they can be black, they can be white. Hold on. Let
that sink in for a minute. They can be gray, they can be green, they can be black, or they can be white. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like they are the Mac Daddy when it comes to pests. Like,
yeah, is
this camouflage?
Yeah, and they generally hang out under leaves and on the stems. You don't really see them on top of the leaves as much.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right that underneath the leaves, which is easy to miss, stems. And I've only paid attention to this because it's just been right inside, right? So I've seen them in the center, the crown of the vegetable plant.
Yes.
So like take a pepper plant, right? So I've seen them in there as well. And I imagine that may even be where they start, but I could be wrong there.
And so yeah.
They're itty bitty, not microscopic, but they are really small.
They're really small.
You only really notice them when they're in clusters.
Yes.
Which, I feel like you have a problem there.
Well, and that's exactly where I was going, where the reason why I think they are perceived as such an issue is because by the time you notice them, there's huge amounts of them, and they're sucking the sap out of your plants.
Yep.
So when you see them, what's the first thing you do?
Depending on how many there are, like how widespread, sometimes I just cut the leaf. So I see them generally on, not so many fruiting vegetables in my garden. I see them more so on leafy greens, like, my kale, my cabbage, things that are really in the brassica family. So I can sacrifice some leaves.
Right.
So that's one of the first things I do. Like I'm clipping that plant. Second thing, I'm going to jump ahead. Second thing I probably would do is take the hose to them.
Yeah,
which I know you don't do either.
Well, so the first thing I do is if I have a hose handy, I will, but I don't really keep a hose by my garden. So no, it's usually not the first thing to do. The first thing I do is I go get a spray bottle and I put Dawn soap in it, unscented Dawn soap, and I mix it up, a couple drops per the water, and I spray it. And that usually takes care of my problem in itself. And I'll do that every couple of days. Doesn't hurt to go a little bit heavy on that. And what that does is that, dude, if you do your dishes and afterwards your hands are all dry, it desiccates them out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's
doesn't it suffocate them?
I don't know. I know it desiccates them and it probably suffocates them and it probably does any other acate you could think of. It's not terrible. It's not terrible for them, but for you or the vegetables, obviously we get it on our food all the time, but a lot of the times that's what works for me. So it's literally, I get a spray bottle. I have one like from the Dollar Tree. It's like a size of a can of soda, and I'll put like a squirt in and then water, and then I don't shake it vigorously. I'll just kind of like swirl it a little bit, and
Yeah, because you don't want the suds necessarily. That's exactly how I've treated them indoors as an aside.
Yeah.
So when the plants were large enough, and I started kind of replanting them, I did the whole rinse off. But originally I treated them with, first I let them get out of hand.
Yeah.
But then when I started treating them, I treated them with a mixture of water and soap. Same thing.
Yeah.
I support that.
So, and then the second thing I do is I give them a blast of neem oil. If they keep coming back, and that will take care of them for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll do, every 7 days. And so what's important to realize is once you treat them, you have to figure out what the life cycle of it is. And then you have to treat it again when you don't see them because you have to get the eggs and the babies. And then you really even need to do it one more time. So I can't tell you how many messages Backyard Gardens TV and the Backyard Gardener have gotten in itself. It's like, hey, I treated for X bug and they came back. Well, because you didn't get the eggs. You got to get the eggs. You know what I mean?
I don't know for aphids in particular, but there are a lot of these things that when you talk about hatching eggs, it's, 7, maybe 14 days before, that egg hatches. And that's that weird thing of you think you got it, but it takes a couple of rounds. Yeah. And also keep in mind the rain cycle and your watering cycle too.
Well, yeah, you don't want to apply right before it rains, and the thing is too, so the key numbers between, and this is kind of setting up the whole show, for reproductive rates it's like usually 7, 10, 12, 14, and even 18 days. Those are usually the key days. And so like if you don't know, you can't find any information, go every 7 days, you're going to get them, but it does take multiple things, multiple treatments, and they
absolutely hop plants too.
Yes.
Aphids do.
And that's why I go on a treatment schedule, and I'll give you my treatment schedule at the end of the show. So, because I don't want to take away from the rest of them, and people are like, "Oh, I'm good, holla." But and do you have any other way to treat aphids?
I think treating them, meaning they already exist. No, I don't have any other ways. Yeah. But there also is the question around how to avoid them.
I don't know how to prevent them.
You know what I'm going to say, brother?
Cover.
That's what I'm going to say.
Actually, I do have.
I'm just going to have a whole tarp over my entire backyard, my garden.
Yeah, I have an idea of how to do it, but I haven't decided yet. So, what's the second one?
This is one that I've done some research on, but I'll lean on you because fortunately I haven't had this occurrence in my garden. Tomato hornworm.
Yeah, boy.
It's the garden gods. I believe that they are looking out for me and giving me a few more years. You know what's going to happen just based on me going on this whole thing, right? Anyway, I haven't had them yet.
So
you want? Oh, they're so freaky. I can't.
You want a fun fact about them?
I have a picture up. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so first let's get into the ID. They're on your tomatoes. They're big and they're green. And they're like big juicy caterpillars, right? Now, the fun fact is if you look at them, on the back side of them, there's a spike. Or it's on the head or the butt. I can't remember now because I haven't looked at them in months. There's a spike. That is actually puts it as a tobacco hornworm, which is commonly what we find in our gardens. Now, why are we getting tobacco hornworms on our tomatoes and not tomato hornworms? Because they stopped growing tobacco and they have changed their diet. Yeah. So, and everybody... And
that's interesting. That is a fun fact.
Now, they will devastate. They will completely devastate. And so the way you can tell you have them is because they're green, they blend in. But you'll see the top leaves on your plants are starting to get chewed, and it'll just be the vein of the stem where the leaves are will just be... They'll be bare. And you'll see them at the top. And then you go, or you'll see poops. You'll see little round poops, black poops laying on your leaves. They make nice little poo-poo piles right in the middle of your leaf for you. That's your key that you know. The only way...
The top of the leaves, because there are other things that I've noticed that eat at the bottom sometimes of the leaves.
They eat all of the leaf and they poop on top of the leaf. So that's key. Now... The important thing to remember is there's one way and only one effective way. Or no, there's two ways. One that you can do, and the second way is natural. Those are the only two ways to get rid of them. You hand pick them. Okay. That's it. You just hand pick them. Hand pick them, step on them. Done. Now, if you see them and they have a bunch of white sacks on their back.
I'm sorry. I'm being such a kid. I know.
No, it's okay. Trust me when I say this. Do not touch that hornworm. Leave it in your garden, because what that is that's a parasitic wasp that has attached it. And they're very small. You can't even see them. But they eat them from the inside out. And once they hatch in your garden, they will spread around and they will naturally take care of it. So I had an infestation of like 20 at a time. And I had the parasitic wasps on one of them. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it. And I was picking them off, but I couldn't get on top of them. After about a week or two, they were all gone. Those parasitic wasps were just, every time I went out there would be egg sacs all over them. And those parasitic wasps also act as pollinators. So very easy to take care of. A lot of people freak out, and it's because there's big numbers, but they're gross to pick up. So if you don't want to pick it up, I take my snippers.
Because they latch on, right? Like
they're mushy.
The tentacles,
They're mushy. But, you just hit them with a pair of scissors, cut them in half right there, dead on the spot. Done.
Everything you say about this freaks me out, with the exception of I would prefer having to hand pick something like that, which we'll get to later on in our list, versus something that's itty bitty, like we were just talking about aphids, where I mean, it's impossible to get all of them by hand, right?
Yeah. So everything that we talk about here, and just about everything, I always hand pick first. I hand pick or hand smash. Like I'll take and rub it on a leaf quick. You know what I mean? So when I get in the garden and I see some It's extinction level like stat, you know what I mean? Like I'm on it. Like, this is a judgment, and I am the God right now. Not God, but the God. So
but the note is, what it is, you've researched what it is, and it's a pest, a bad one, and not a good one.
Right. Yeah. I don't just
don't go out there just killing everything.
No. So what's the next one?
Yeah. Oh dear goodness! I need a cookie to get to cleanse myself. I'm trying to work on a little something. So
what flavor cookie do you need though?
I need a reward for dealing with that. It would be a potato chip butter cookie. All right, so moving on. The next one is squash vine borer, which is this is a place where we commune, right? We come together as one in our hatred for this pest.
MFers.
What did you, the little bastards? LBs?
The little bastards, that's what they are. We're calling them the little bastards now. They have a new name. Yeah. They are, so it's funny, man. I was just the other night, I was laying in the bed. If all y'all don't know, that's when I do a lot of my garden research, is I lay in the bed, listen to my wife snore. So,
rude.
No, actually, I listen to my dog snore. What am I saying?
Yeah, of course you better be that. Oh, wait, pause real quick. Yeah. I was on the couch this last week, and I felt a little tired, but I knew I should get up and move around, and so, but I didn't. And I was texting with a friend talking about what I was going to make for dinner, and he's like, get something quick. You're going to be asleep. And I'm like annoyed, like I'm not going to be asleep. And I'm telling you, within minutes, I woke myself up with one of those deep snores.
Oh, yeah.
And I was mad because one, the snore was so annoying, and two, I was only asleep for like a minute or two. But anyway, that's it right there. So there's no deep thought that happens during those times, but go on.
So I have not been successful in myself of avoiding these. Now, what I can tell you is I can tell you the textbook of what you should do, and I can tell you my plan. I now have, even since the last time we talked, I have a full action plan. So
okay, I like it.
Yeah. So
because I'm just gonna say I had some great squash off of this plant and move on. But go on.
No, I'm determined. So how deep do you want me to kind of go deep on this, or what do you want me to do?
I mean, imagine I was eating a cookie. That's how much time you have.
Okay. So the squash vine borer comes from a moth. Okay. It's a black moth with a red belly, and you'll see it, and it's kind of pretty looking. It lays an
I
egg.
hate those.
And then the egg is on your stem. The stem, it hatches, it goes inside of your squash. Your squash will be sitting there. It'll look nice and pretty. In the middle of the day, it'll get wilting. You'll be like, oh, I need to water it.
It goes inside of the stem, not the actual fruit itself.
No.
So it embeds itself,
It
right?
embeds itself at the base of the stem. And you're going to think, oh, it needs to be watered. And it doesn't matter if you've had 50 squash vine borers or you had one squash vine borer. You're always going to think you need to water it. And then you go over and then you see the damage. And so then they grow. So let's start with prevention, because prevention is key on this.
Before you go to prevention, I'm sorry to interrupt you because you were on a roll there, and this is still the figurative cookie. There's also like this ick. I don't know how to describe it other than it looks like it looks like something that's chewed up and spit out that's on the stem. So if you go to it and you see that it's wilted, you don't immediately see, in some cases, like the hole in the stem. You just see the stem doesn't look natural or healthy. Yeah. So that's another hint that's me.
I look at it like it's wet sawdust. Is kind of what it looks like, okay? Yeah. So first off, if you look and it says squash vine borer resistant, that's bullshit. Don't ever buy from that company again because it's not true. They are not resistant.
Liars!
They are not resistant. They are not resistant. I told you 3 times. You should know. The best things are butternut squash because their vine is thicker, so they're not as easily chewed in. That being said, they got into my butternut squash last year. So,
so it's not, you could probably say maybe winter squash with a thicker stem.
Maybe.
Right?
But we're talking about zucchinis, yellow squash. Let's just keep it simple. So prevention is covering your plants. That's the best way. Cover them with, what's that stuff called?
I use tulle, Tulle fabric. Yeah. If you've ever made a tutu or worn a tutu or seen a tutu, it's that. I
have not worn a tutu, but I have that fabric in my house ready to use, and maybe I'll make a tutu out of it as well.
I've run a couple of, 5Ks, maybe a half marathon, maybe even a marathon in a tutu, but that's another life.
Yeah, that was back in the old days.
Yeah, so Lord knows I know that.
Now you can do that. So this is where the life cycle is very important. Very important, okay? And I can't tell you what it is for everybody. I'm going to tell you what it is for my area, but it's going to be different for yours. Yeah. So in my area, the squash vine borer is active between the middle of May and the middle of June. And then it's active again from the middle of July to the middle of August, okay? So you just need to thwart it for this one time period. Yeah. Okay? Well, actually 2. But that's when they come out and they lay their eggs. So the only other thing I can think of for prevention would be to get like some kind of insecticidal dust and sprinkle it on the stem at night. Yeah. So, but it's a broad spectrum, so it could be an issue.
And we've talked about this, and I think you said it did work for you. I haven't tried it yet. Covering the stem. I've seen people cover it with aluminum foil, protecting the stem. Yeah,
I'm all set.
I mean, if you've tried it and it worked, let us know. And I may give that a try, but I do think the timing, depending on your area, I mean, it's such a small window. Luckily, summer squash grows really quickly. Issue, though, is they still like it warm, right? Hence the summer squash. So me planting summer squash in March won't do me any good. Those plants won't survive because I'm still getting cold temps and freezing temps even, So yeah, I actually was thinking about this morning, probably, as I knew we were going to do this show, and I am going to plant, so by the time you hear this, I should have already planted some squash. Like, their seeds is what I'm starting with. They're easy. I'll see what I can get off of a plant. They're actually a pretty cool plant. Zucchini, yellow squash. I mean, I got battles to fight in the garden, and I'm going to be frank. This ain't really one of them.
This is one for me because zucchini is important because we make a lot of zucchini bread and stuff like that. But I'm not done on treatments.
Oh, okay.
I'm just getting started. I told you.
Uh-oh.
We're breaking.
I'm
It's
down
war
to
on the little
crumbs.
bastard this year.
I'm down to crumbs on this cookie.
Okay.
And I really shouldn't be eating a second cookie.
You might need to take just a little nibble. So what you can also do is you can spray BT on the plant as well. On a rotation, again, just doing a schedule, like a maintenance. You spray BT. BT is a natural bacteria used. It's organic. It doesn't sound organic, but it is, and it attacks worms and stuff like that. You just spray it in the evening, and then you can put neem oil on it, but that doesn't really help because it's not eating it. It's laying an egg, and then the egg is going in. So you have to defeat all that. That being said, my plan is I'm actually going to dust my stems this year, and I'm going to cover. I've got the stuff to cover. The fabric was so cheap, I got it, and may not actually cover. I'm not totally sure yet. And then to prevent them, the one thing you can do is beneficial nematodes. You can put those in your garden, and they will eat the larvae in the soil, so they cannot come out of it because they stay in the soil. So, but once you get it and that plant wilts, you have to cut it open, pull it out, smash it, tape it, bury it, and you might survive. It's best just to get rid of it completely.
I'd say start another plant while you're trying to treat this one.
Yeah.
If that's an important vegetable for your garden. Yeah. Because it could be lights out for it.
Yep. So that's it. That's all I got. I'm moving on now.
All right. You are responsible for not one but two cookies now being consumed.
Damn it. Peanut butter.
Here we are.
Peanut butter.
No, potato chip.
Potato chip cookies?
Butter cookie, yeah.
Okay. What's the next one?
I mean, it's probably worth it. All right, moving on. Japanese beetles.
Oh.
You know what's crazy? Japanese beetles are so cool looking to me. And at first I didn't know. And I remember I was like last year, I'm like, oh, I've never had them until last year. And then I was looking back on some pictures and I actually captured a picture of it because I thought it was pretty cool looking. It has like that kind of copper shoulders. It looks like any other beetle, but with the copper shoulders, almost like kind of green. I know they're not eyes, but where you would imagine eyes would be. It's timing, right? You will likely, they're slow too, which is good. We'll talk about that in a second. You'll likely see poop first. It's black poop is what I've seen. No, not you?
No, I was just trying to think. I mean, I've had some pretty bad outbreaks, so.
Yeah. What they attack in my garden, absolutely okra. They attack flowers as well. So I've seen them absolutely on my hibiscus, which are, you guys know, my favorite. I've seen them on my canna lilies, which I'm actually trying to grow from seed this year. And yeah, they're a pain in the ass. I mean, they just basically eat at the leaves, right?
Yes.
So I don't know, what kind of damage have you seen real, like it's destroyed a plant? I've not seen that.
They just devastate the leaves in numbers. So I get them on my green beans, and basically just my green beans is where I've really had an issue.
Yeah.
And they
I looked this up. It says asparagus, beans, okra, peaches, raspberries, rhubarb, and corn are most vulnerable.
Okay. So yeah, they get on my beans, and I had them for a little bit on my what's that rose that I have? Knockout roses. I have they get just they weren't real bad, but they were definitely there. But they'll start eating, and it's generally from the top, the very top ones down. They'll eat the leaves, and you'll just see them. They'll have like jagged marks in them, and that's the key thing. Now, how do you treat them? Because
the tips of the
leaves, the edges. They just eat the edges. So, but they will devastate a plant. I mean, they cleaned out a whole row of green beans.
Oh wow, yeah. So I hand pick.
Yes.
And when I say hand pick, because they kind of hop, right? So I have a mason jar that I keep in the garden. I have one of the plastic tops versus like the regular, 2-piece lid. And I keep it in the garden, and I basically just collect them. Like, this is something I do on a garden walk. So I'll take the jar, put the jar right up to the leaf, and then basically use the lid to scoop it down. I'm okay with picking these up with my hands. That's no big deal for me, but they're pretty quick. So I found you can basically scoop them into the container of any kind of container. You can basically toss them. Kill them is key. So just don't toss them someplace else, because they are in both my front yard and backyard.
Them to death.
Unfortunately, and this is a little bit like kind of let's double check who we thought Batavia was. I will put water in the jar. So I basically drown them.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, but we already know you're a little bit on the edge of,
Oh, I'm
not quite weird, maybe a little bit
I'm
crazy.
a straight mass murderer. I put a 5-gallon bucket with Dawn soap in it. So not only do they drown, but then they get whatever it does to them. Like, I don't play around, but so and
then you gave me a recommendation last year. I have an extra kit. I can't think of the name of it though.
Yeah.
It's like $4 or $5.
Yeah. It's, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
I handpick too. I handpick in the morning, and I handpick when they're having sex. So they'll be stacked up on top of each other, and it's 2-for-1, baby. And they don't move much. So that's really good. Early in the morning, I'll get out there and I'll pick them out and just drop them in the bucket. And I keep the bucket there. The problem with keeping buckets there and stuff like that is the smell of the death will actually attract more.
Yeah.
So there's this thing that I sent Batavia, and I'll put it in the show notes. Like I said, it's a Japanese beetle trap, and what you do is it has a scent, and it has a paper bag or a plastic bag with a little funnel on it, and you hang it upwind or maybe downwind, whatever, of your prevalent wind that comes from your garden, and then it'll attract them, and they will leave and go to it. And it did work for me. But I had to, when I finally noticed them one year, I had to I was handpicking for weeks. But I was able to get on top of them.
Last year when you gave me that recommendation, I went out and picked it up. And I would find the beetles inside of that bag, right? So they were being trapped. But again, they were everywhere.
Right.
So they were in so many different front yard flower bed is where I originally saw them. They were in the okra inside of the front yard garden. They were on flowers in the backyard, so even though I was trapping a bunch, there were still a bunch around. And I think is it June when you start to see them?
Yeah, usually it's about June.
They overwinter too, right? They overwinter
too. They overwinter in your soil. Now, a beneficial nematode will help with that. Okay. They will eat the larvae of them. So beneficial nematodes, the reason why I keep bringing them up is because that's how I'm treating my subterranean termites. So as I'm looking at the list of what these things attack, I'm like, okay, it takes care of this, and this. Let's see how it does. And if it does good, I will put that into my rotation. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little expensive, but if it really does a good of a job. So the beneficial nematodes are supposedly attack the Japanese beetle larvae in the soil, and they will get inside of it and feed on it and kill it. They will devastate you. They are terrible. They are easy to pick. Hand picking is key for these. It is so important. Like, get yourself a glove if you don't want to touch them.
Yeah. But this could be something depending on how big your kids are. Some of these plants are pretty big, but like your green beans, it could be something that a kid enjoys doing.
Yeah.
It's get it done is basically the point. And I'm talking about like daily, multiple times a day in some instances.
Yeah.
Like, the reason why I kept the mason jar in the garden was because I'll be out talking to someone that's pulled over in the front yard out in front of the house talking. I'm like, hold on a second, because once you see it, they are, again, even when they're beyond humping, they're slow when they're humping, but they're also slow in general until you try to approach them. That's when they kind of move around.
Yeah.
So definitely get after it, man. And
I would go out there in morning and evening and handpick. And I would, what I would do in the evening is I would handpick, and then I would spray with neem oil. Okay. And again, that's part of that maintenance spray. If that's something you want to do, that neem oil will help with that, because they'll bite it and they'll be like, ugh. And then that just, all these factors, like you can want to, like I had a bad infestation, like super bad. And I was able to get on top of it. And the green beans were almost completely defoliated. And then they had time to come back and grow and give me plenty of harvest to get. I think I got about 15 cans of green beans out of those plants.
Okay.
So, it's definitely a thing, but you have to hand pick them.
Yeah, all of these things are things that you just can't wait and see if it's going to,
No.
You're not going to come out and there's not going to be garden magic that, eliminates these things.
No.
Okay.
What's
all right.
next?
Next one. My least favorite. This is my top pest. It's the cabbage worm, which is also known as the cabbage looper, which is also known as the cabbage moth. You'll probably hear me talk about it in videos and online. Did I say cabbage worm already?
You did.
Yeah. So
the little green worm that leaves holes in your brassicas.
Yeah, but that's not where it starts, right? So the mama is that white moth that I thought was, that's kind of cool looking as it was flying around in the spring and in the summer. The issue with this is it's the long haul, right? So this year I've been tracking it. I saw it as early as April the 3rd. In my area. And last year I saw it as late as like right around the frost. So right at the end of October. That's a long period of time.
Yeah.
So this moth basically lands on and loves brassicas, lays the egg, and then you'll see some days later this green cabbage worm. Right, it blends in so. I mean, it's the master of blenders.
Well, it lives
right?
underneath the leaves. It's so hard to see to start off with.
Yeah. It looks, and they are again slow moving. So just a quick cursory glance, you're gonna miss it. I think that this is probably on par with like the tomato hornworm when it comes to devastation. It will eat up leaves. Every year I have some problem with it either eating up the starter plants I've set out and not planted, or it getting to the actual plants that are growing. Will it take out a full bed of collards or something?
Yes.
If you let it,
yes,
if
it
will.
do
nothing, absolutely it will.
It took out a full bed of turnips for me. I had to, they came back, but I had a hard time with them.
Yeah.
So,
So
the way you find them is you see holes in the leaves.
Yep.
Well, and there's a lot of things that can do that, but that's going to be your key to start looking. And these, you have to look under the leaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and if you see one and you pick one, you haven't picked enough, because there's going to be more than one that's, within that garden area.
Yeah.
Now, I've tried a number of things because, like I've said, it probably was the original garden pest in my garden, like the original thing that I knew years ago I had to do something about. So what's been most effective, it's going to be a broken record, cover, and I mean cover before she attacks. So I literally planted my spring veggies. You hear that? Spring veggies? Get at your girl. Yeah. And I covered them, and it was a pain in the ass. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't talk about it so much because I like it, but it's effective. I covered them immediately, so that's one method. Hand picking them, it's going to be a combination once they've actually hatched, hand picking and then continuing to have it covered, which is a pain if you need to take the cover off to pick them. I've heard things like a mixture of flour will kind of help. Yeah. It's not worked. My grandfather was out there sprinkling, this is 10 years ago, sprinkling my greens with flour, and
that's terrible.
I've also read that they're territorial. So I've seen people, and I may give this a try this year, put faux, like cut up something that looks like a moth, the white moth. And so the idea is if the real moth sees something else there, they'll go on and move on to something else.
So have you tried all of these?
I've tried all of them with the exception of the faux moth.
Yeah.
And the next thing I'm going to say would be the companion planting. So things like nasturtiums.
Yeah.
Planting those which would attract the moth instead. I have a good friend here that listens to the podcast that recommended it. And because I trust that person in general, I'm willing to give that a try. Nasturtiums.
So what I do is I go out there and I see them. I'm like, oh crap, I see them. And I just start smashing them. first thing I do is I start smashing them. Then that evening I go get my BT and I spray them and that kills them. That's what that stuff is for.
Yeah.
And I know that, it's, I can't remember the actual name. It's Bacillus Tri, but it's literally, that's what it's for, is to kill worms. Like, and it focuses on the bad worms. And I mean, once I learned about that and I started using it, this issue didn't become an issue anymore. Because when I go out and I kill them, first of all, you're eliminating a huge portion of it when you hand pick or take care of anything. But then when we spray with that, and I use a combination spray, that will help with that too, because they won't taste as flavorful. It'll kill them, and you can really get on top of them pretty quick with that. And a lot of times, like in the spring, it's hard, but in the fall, it's good because as it gets colder, you get less and less, and you're only focusing on that one in the fall generally too.
Yeah. So if you're watching the video, you'll see anytime, with the exception of the Dawn, the soap and the water, like the liquid soap, anytime Ben mentions a spray bottle, I'm kind of like, it's not that I don't believe in it. It's just that that's not a part of my ideal garden maintenance. Like, I just hate that shit.
Yeah.
I hate it. And I'm going to give you this advice, and it isn't do what I say and not what I do. It's commit to what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
Because the issue is when I basically come around to it and say, all right, I'm going to spray, I've let the thing go too far. Right. So either going in, you're willing to, and I hate to say willing to, like you're willing to sacrifice your garden, spray neem oil or BT. It's not that serious. Right. You're willing to do those things. So that means that this is a part of your arsenal. Right. And when something is there, attack it with these methods, right? Don't wait 3 weeks after you've seen holes in your leaves and say, now I'm going to start spraying.
Yeah.
Well, so you're gonna pay for it, quite literally.
And I know I go on and on about a maintenance spray, and I want to say that, like, it's not like I'm like, okay, first frost, it hit, or last frost is done, spray today. All right. 10 days from now, we're going to spray again. It's like you start to get issues. And once they really start cropping up, if they do, then maybe, like, if I get aphids, I would just spray just where the aphids were, but if you start getting like a lot of stuff, that's when that stuff will kick in. Yeah. And once it's licked, you can back off. You know what I mean? You don't have to be like, all right, every 10 days I'm going to go out there. And I mean, again, everything that I'm spraying is organic. I guess the Dawn dish soap is not organic, but, I think there's worse things. So it's not like you're like automatic, it's a measure. And it's just like you said, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. And I think, I would hate to see somebody, a lot of us want to have organic gardens. And then you're so hell-bent on having an organic garden that you don't actually treat something. You don't actually have a garden. What you have is a buffet for everything else out there. So I'm going to
butcher it, but what is it Mike Tyson that said, everybody is what did he say? Everybody's a fighter until you get punched in the mouth or something like. So, I mean, it's all like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, that, or the other. And then, I mean, I've seen people nearly in tears when it comes to some of these pests attacking their garden. Yeah. And while I've not been brought to tears, like the level of disappointment, not when it's, I wish I never had to deal with any of these, but that's not the life that we live as gardeners. But when they present themselves, it's one thing. But when I'm looking at, like, it was my winter squash last year, it wasn't a pest per se. It was disease. And it's just the level of disappointment that you have. So basically, a part of this episode, the intent, and this comes out like before a lot of these really take hold, the intent is to give you tools to be able to manage. And I think this is a part of your garden planning, right? Come up with a game plan.
Yeah, it's important that we recognize it. And look, I'm here to tell you, you get a watermelon that's 40 pounds and it's not ready yet, and you got something attacking, you tell me that you ain't going to do something to take care of it. You know what I mean? My whole thing is like, I don't want it to get to that point where it's like full on panic mode, because what you're doing is like all those holes that are put in those leaves, that limits the harvest that you can get off of it. Yeah. It adds stress. It adds this, that, and the other. You know, I mean, research organic pest control. And that's why, I mean, a lot of these, except for the aphids so far and the squash vine bar, okay, so some of them were handpick. That's the preferred method.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, and as we go into the next, and I think the final one, handpicking is another, method. So,
yeah. And I think, so just to note, I've experienced, I think 5 of the 6 that we're covering today. And these 5 of 6, the exception is the tomato hornworm. I don't know. It seemed like I needed to get the cowbell in there. But never exactly at the same time, right? So there may be some overlap, but I'm basically getting these things under control at different times.
Yes.
And so that's important when you kind of think about, I can't stress enough, don't let that shit go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, attack! Unless you're basically going to let it go, which
right.
I think you're probably listening to this podcast and that's not your desire. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
All right.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Final. Slugs and snails. The double S.
So this one is awesome. We don't have to spray anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all know, I'm not even going to tell you what they look like because we all know.
Yeah.
Damage. You notice them by holes and leaves. Snails can be very devastating.
And they're coming from, the ground up versus some of these things are kind of flying into your garden area. Some of these.
Yes. And they attack at night. So of all the things we've talked about, the squash vine borer lands at night, so you hardly ever see it. And then the snails and slugs come out at night, which is good for the snails and slugs. That's a good thing.
The freaks come out at night. Someone's going to catch that reference.
So, yeah, that's a good thing, though, that they come out at night. And I'm going to tell you why.
Why is that?
Because we can trap them. And then we can exterminate them. Okay? I'm not relocating them. I'm not going to do it because they're gross and they're terrible. Slugs, they're nasty. I mean, how many of you out there, when you were kids, found a slug in the summertime and went and poured salt on it and just watched it, desiccate? Okay, that's how we're gonna kill them. So what I do is I take a board. So I usually keep about a 3-foot board, a 3-foot 2x8 board in my yard, and that is used. I use it to clean fish when I catch them. But I also use it to trap snails and slugs. Right? Well, of course, the top is for the fish. The bottom is for that. But what I do is I lay it next to the garden and I wet the bottom. And then in the daytime, you go out there and they all go hide underneath it because it's now you've created this perfect environment. And I'll go out there and I'll open it and there'll be 15 slugs under it. Take my little salt shaker. See ya. Beer traps work for slugs.
I was hoping you were going to mention beer traps.
Yep.
I've done a essential oil and water mixture.
I haven't done that.
Yeah, I've done that and it's worked. I've done cinnamon, and the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah.
About that as a remedy. Because there's also, and I'm glad you mentioned earlier the things you've been using, that are organic, because there's also bees that we want to be careful of, right? There are other pollinators that we want to be careful of.
It's very important you said that because I used beer traps last year and I won't use them again. I found a lot of bees in them and I was like, that's done, And it didn't really work that great. So diatomaceous earth.
Okay.
That's a good one. You can put that around your plants. But the problem is it comes out at night.
That's a powder, right?
It's a powder, and when it gets any kind of moisture on it, it's useless. So it's a tough one. But the trapping definitely works. There's also, I had bad slugs last year from that damn wood mulch.
I knew you were going there.
Imagine that, where I got the subterranean termites from.
I reject you.
You reject nothing. You reject nothing.
That is the absolute downside of the wood mulch. The slugs.
I have nothing good to say about wood mulch.
Okay.
Nothing. But
we
anyway,
appreciate your comments.
so
another opportunity, you had to see the video portion of this.
Between the roly-poly and the snails that really, like, I had never had snails like this before, and I'm still battling them, but not as bad. I could not get on top of them. I went out there every night this winter or in the fall, and I would hand pick them at night, and I would go through with a fine tooth comb and a flashlight, and I would just pick, and I would drop them in beer or whatever. But I got smart, and I got something from Garden Safe called it's a slug and snail bait. Okay. And you sprinkle it in your garden. It's little pellets, and it will attract them. They will eat it, and then they will die. So what's in it is iron phosphate, key ingredient to look for. That's what gets rid of them, but it also helps feed your plants. Okay. So it's very important.
Okay, maybe I can dig that.
Yeah, it's just a granular. You just put it on, spread it out there, and it seemed to work. Yeah. Okay.
I think just I have one other note. I'm sorry, I got distracted by you know what, gnats. I one other note around kind of pests, right? And it is garden maintenance, keeping your garden area clean as much as possible, because a lot of what we've talked about will feed on, the leaves if you're pruning your plants and you leave them in the garden, right? Yeah. It's definitely a really good idea, going into a new season, right at the end of the season, if you've had trouble with some of these things, like you don't want to leave food for them, basically. So try to keep it tidy if you can. It's a struggle for me. I try really hard, and a lot of years I'm successful, and some not so much. But this is the reason why. Not just because it makes for a good Instagram picture, which sometimes it does.
Yeah. No, and I agree with what you say completely. But you know what else is important about every single one of these? You can catch all of them if we just walk it out. You just got to do that garden. You just got to do that garden walk, and you're going to catch it.
Absolutely.
Every time. That's what the garden walk is for. Okay.
One of the key reasons, man. But you shut me down when I said to look for problems. Although when I listened to that episode again, it did make sense the way that you reframed it. But yeah, man, these bugs aren't coming to knock on your door. No. These pests aren't. Your mail person isn't going to say, hey, I walked past your garden and I noticed that.
No, and
you gotta keep your eyes out.
Last year when the tomato hornworms were out there and they were going crazy, I would see people on Instagram, and they would go out with black lights, and their plants would be peppered with them. Yeah. And I would look at it and be like, it's clear that you're not checking for these issues. You know what I mean? Like, that's great that you got a black light and you're out there, but at the same time, like, if you spent that time you get to go buy that battery operated black light and hand pick them off, you wouldn't have that issue anymore. It would be
but we're humans, and a lot of times we don't take action until insert problem has come up.
And that's one thing you have to learn too with this is, man, those problems crop up quick, and you got to be fast acting. Yeah. Is there one of these pests that you can think of that you can just kind of let and see if it'll work itself out?
I mean, maybe the slugs and snails.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. Unless cold weather's coming.
Yeah.
But that's it.
You got to do it, man. Attack.
Yep.
Attack!
So there you go. Oh, I was going to give... I'm going to give the recipe of the day. And then I'm going to give you the mixture that I use for my maintenance spray.
Oh, good. Okay.
Since you're listening to this, then something tells me you like to cook.
Hey, y'all. Miss Gardner and I have been busy whipping up some food in the backyard kitchen.
Check us out as we grow some of our ingredients.
But most importantly, we just try to get the recipe right. Available now on YouTube at Backyard Gardens.
Remember, if you grow it, we will cook it or can it.
Are you growing carrots?
I am trying to once again.
Attempt. Well, I'm going to give you a roasted carrot recipe today.
Hey.
Garlic parmigiane. So at the time of this, you should maybe be getting close to harvesting your garlic too. Maybe. And carrots, you should be well on your way to getting them. So it's going to work out pretty good. I hope we all know how to roast stuff, basically. Preheat oven to 400 degrees. And what you're going to need is you're going to need carrots. This recipe calls for 2 pounds. So you can have 2 pounds of carrots. You're going to want some olive oil to coat it in, or oil of your choosing, really. You're going to want... I say about 8 cloves of garlic because I like garlic. You know what I mean? Like, I like flavor, and I don't like vampires anywhere near me, so we just kind of take care of that. And then a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. So you're going to want that. And some kind of breadcrumb. So whatever you feel like. Yeah. So if you don't want to use breadcrumbs, you can use crackers. Ritz crackers are a good one if you feel like being fancy. Saltines if you feel like being boring. Panko if you want to be fancy, or regular breadcrumbs, doesn't matter. Salt and pepper, and then you can use fresh parsley, but I actually like to use cilantro in place of parsley. That's just me. I'm weird. And then you're just going to toss it all together, and you're going to cook it at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. And you just want to make sure that they are tender all the way through. And halfway through, you're going to flip them with a spatula. You don't need to go through and one at a time. Just give it a little flip, and then you're done. That's it.
Are you dicing those carrots? Did I miss that part?
You can dice. You can you can slice. You can do whatever the hell you want. Honestly.
Yeah, the one thing about, a lot of us do know how to roast. I mean, one of the key elements of roasting is just making sure that there's separation in whatever the veggie is.
Well, it's consistency in the size, too. Because you don't want to steam it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
consistency.
You don't want to start steaming it if it's like they're touching, basically.
Yeah. So, but that's, I mean, I would use that as I would probably eat that as a main part of my meal, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't, but it really sounds good because it's just a flip of the way you would normally eat carrots, right? A little bit more texture, right? Which I think it's kind of fun. So, yeah, different flavor profile. Not bad.
Different flavor. Okay. My recipe I'm giving you 2 recipes today for my maintenance spray.
That doesn't count. I got all excited. Well, no, I forgot you were giving this. Okay, go ahead. Maintenance spray.
So for my maintenance spray, I use BT, the Bacillus, whatever. You can find that. I get the concentrate. So you can get that at the store. It's like $7 for a bottle, and a bottle should last you all year. If not more than that, you use very little of it. And then I use a cold pressed neem oil. Okay. So you're going to use that, and it's going to be, I want to say it's non-hydrolyzed. Yeah, so basically if it gets below 70 degrees, it hardens. So it needs to be warm in order to turn to a liquid. So I'm going to put that I have a sprayer that I carry, and then I add in a little bit of dish soap again, and that helps as a dispersant. So it'll help bond everything and then get that out. And
the leaves to the plants.
Yeah, and that's what I'll use, basically for everything. It's not a one size fits all, but once you start getting worms and stuff like that, you can do that. And then the other one that I use, that's, if you, for some reason, think that that's not organic and you don't believe me and you don't want to look it up, you can do stuff like garlic and cayenne peppers mixed together. You can spray with that too. And that helps with deer.
Okay.
Okay. Deer, any kind of animal that has a strong sense of smell. So.
Okay.
Is that good?
Look at you dropping the, oh, that was only 2. I got to take one. I don't know how I'll take back a bail, but we're in the negative for the next show already.
Yeah. Good?
Yeah, man, this wasn't my favorite episode, but good job.
Why isn't it your favorite?
I hate this shit, man. I hate it.
That's part
it's
of
so
it.
Necessary. But
gardening is not all like, oh, I got the flowers.
There's no hashtag garden joy in any of this. But I mean, it's a necessary evil to figure out how to deal with it. So I accept it.
And you know what, though? In the middle of the season, like any day now, these are going to be the questions that we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah,
for
sure.
These are the questions. We won't get, look how big my tomato got. We're going to get, how do I get this? How do I get rid of this? What is this?
Shame on you for not hashtagging BYG podcast and saying, look how big my tomato got.
Yeah.
Gosh, I want to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if you're going to send a picture to somebody or us or anybody for that matter, make sure it's a clear picture.
I'm okay with a fuzzy tomato.
No. I'm talking about of a bug.
Yeah,
I'm talking about of a bug.
Yeah.
Of a pest. But yeah, it's do those garden walks. Get used to the idea of picking. I think we gave out some that are like solely pickers. Like if you pick them, they're gone. So, and
aggressively pick. All right, is that what we have?
That's what we have. So what you guys need to do now is you need to go and you need to go on to Backyard Gardens TV and you need to watch Backyard Kitchen. You need to like, subscribe, and follow. And then you need to get your little headphones on and put them in and then go out in the garden and listen to us while you work. And until next time.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV.
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.